Rob and Michele Reiner's death certificates were revealed today. Also, Los Angeles Magazine was able to obtain Nick Reiner's charging docs. Now, I want to be clear, the charging docs are different than the probable cause affidavit. The probable cause affidavit, I am trying to get my hands on because that is going to have a lot more information as it pertains to a potential timeline, lots of different details according to the police. But let's pull up the death certificate. First, it's Rob Reiner's death certificate. And I had actually requested these from the city. And it's so interesting because it's kind of like the medical examiner's office. When you request something, and I'm talking about LA, they actually have to physically mail it to you, which is kind of annoying because I am in New York City. But TMZ made everybody's lives very easy when they plastered the documents on their website. So this is Rob Reiner's death certificate. Now, it's pretty standard for the most part. And gosh, I always apologize for being so matter of fact. This is incredibly tragic. And my heart goes out to this family. As you can see, it says the informant's name is Jake Reiner, son. And that generally means that Jake Reiner was the middleman for the funeral home. So he identified his parents. He kind of told them any details they needed to know. And I can only imagine that Romy Reiner was like, nope, I'm going to need a minute here. Because if you are not aware, Romy Reiner identified her parents. She walked in on this gruesome scene that we were hearing so much about. So Rob Reiner has his kind of business listed as entertainment, actor, director, producer, some college. Now keep this in mind. It says marital status is married. And when you get to, I'm just scrolling down for a minute. When we get to Michele Reiner, it actually says widowed. And here is why. It says Rob Reiner's time of death is 1545, which would be 345. And then it says Michele Reiner's time of death is 1546. So that's 346. So they are, putting them a minute apart. But this is, this time of death, this is not necessarily from the medical examiner's office or the coroner's office. This is when they determined that they were deceased. So it was determined that Rob Reiner was deceased before Michele Reiner. So I did find that a little bit interesting, only because I didn't realize that if a husband and wife are found deceased together, whichever spouse is the last to pass, they would be known as a widow, which again, it's just crazy. Or I guess to me it is, maybe not to anyone else, but it also looks like they were cremated, and they were cremated through Mount Sinai Mortuary. And this just gives me chills. Oh my gosh. It says place of injury, residents describe how injury occurred with knife by another right there. That is, oof, yeah, definitely gives me chills. Oh my goodness. All right. So I'm going to take this down. And before I get to the charging docs, I want to play something for you. Brian Claypool is a defense attorney. He was on Fox today. I like Brian Claypool. I think I did a show with him. We talked about the Kohberger case. He's a great defense attorney. He actually defended this woman, this case, Dalia DiPolito. And let me tell you, this case is crazy because this woman was basically caught like being recorded trying to hire a hitman to off her husband. It's so black and white. And Brian Claypool literally managed to get her a mistrial in the first trial. I mean, she was eventually convicted, but I was just like, dude, talk about a skilled defense attorney, because that case was so black and white. But yeah, Brian Claypool is offering his thoughts on Nick's defense. So I wanted to play that for everybody just to give a different. I always make this so much bigger. Thank you always for bearing with me, guys. I'll add this back and then switch.
Nick Reiner is I think what the Bible defense here that has more traction for Nick Reiner is a doctrine out here in California called diminished actuality. What does that mean? It's kind of what you're talking about, which is that Nick was incapable of forming the intent, right? Might have known right from wrong, but he wasn't able to build the intent to commit the crime because of the drug addiction. Why is that significant? Because if he prevailed on that defense at trial, it's not an absolute defense. He's not going to walk scot-free, which I don't think a jury is going to do in West Los Angeles. What it will do is it negates intent, drops the charge down to manslaughter, right? And then you're looking at maybe 10, 11 years in jail for each murder. But to your point, then at sentencing, he can use all the mental health issues for a mitigation, and he might only eventually do 10, 15 years in prison, and he lives to see another day. I think the Bible defense here
let me pause
that has more traction.
I had not heard of that before. Basically saying that he did not understand the intent, so it should be dropped to a manslaughter charge. That is super interesting. I didn't even think of that as an option. I don't know. I mean, I feel like that is a little messy, but drop in the comments what you guys think. I'm interested to know if you think it's as messy as I do. But look, we don't know yet. We haven't heard from this medical or expert that's evaluating him to get their thoughts. So let's wait and see. Also, if you missed it, I also did a live stream with the former warden of MDC, which is the Metropolitan Detention Center in New York. He went through his experience in just when a defendant enters the prison, what happens to them with this mental health evaluation, and how in LA, where Nick Reiner is, that has to happen within 2 days of the defendant being entered into custody. So that's actually incredible, because in New York, I think it's like something like 2 weeks. So you could have somebody who really doesn't belong in Gen Pop roaming around before they get this evaluation. But thankfully, Nick Reiner got his within 2 days. Okay, so yes, go to my live streams to see that video. All right, let me just pull up the charging doc for you all. And what you're gonna find is this charging doc is pretty standard, and it's pretty bare bones. So I'm not gonna read the whole thing in detail because it's talking about Penal Code section 667. Blah, blah, blah. But if you want to see this and you want to see a copy of it, head to the LA Mag Twitter at LA Mag, or my Twitter at Conlon_Lauren. We have this up there for you to view. So it says, the people of the state of California versus Nick Reiner. The undersigned is and his birthday says 9/14/1993. The undersigned is informed and believes that, count 1, on or about December 14th, 2025, in the county of Los Angeles, the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code section 187A, a felony, was committed by Nick Reiner, who did unlawfully and with malice aforethought murder Michele Reiner, a human being. So it goes into the Penal Code underneath, and then count 2, on or about December 14th, 2025, in the county of Los Angeles, the same thing, the crime of murder. And it just says, was committed by Nick Reiner, who did unlawfully and with malice aforethought murder Robert Reiner, a human being. So I guess you could ask yourself here, did Nick Reiner do this with malice? Depending on what you feel about, I guess, mental health in general is how I guess one would form their opinion on that. I just don't think it's fair to form an opinion before we know everything, before we have all the facts in front of us. Because listen, I wasn't friends with the Reiner family. I didn't know them. I don't know how long they were dealing with this, although it seems like they were dealing with it for Nick's entire life. Clearly, I was not one of Nick's doctors, so I don't have his records. I mean, there's just so much we don't know. But now I'm thinking, now that it's out there, did he do this with malice? Does Brian Claypool have a point here? Could they get the charges lowered to manslaughter? and say that no, he did not understand the intent of this. So I did find that very interesting. But anyway, I will be taking off tomorrow for Christmas. So Merry Christmas if you celebrate. And again, I feel so sad for Romy and Jake Reiner. I feel so sad for anyone and everyone that has lost someone important to them, whether it be by a horrible crime or this person just passed naturally or unexpectedly. My heart goes out to you. This is my first Christmas without my grandma, and she lived a beautiful life. She passed away last year. She was old. She was 93. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to miss her. So anyway, I just hope everybody has a great holiday season with your family and friends. And I'll be back with another podcast on the 26th. So thanks guys for listening. And if you don't already, please like and subscribe to LA Magazine.